Hello and welcome to another interview for the International Literacy Association. And this time we're talking with Tricia Springstubb, who is the author of KHALIL and Mr. Haggerty and the Backyard Treasures. Welcome, Tricia.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I'm so happy to be here.
And we're excited to talk with you about this book that came out in the spring in May. And yeah, tell us a little bit about KHALIL and Mr. Haggerty and what makes their relationship so special.
Well, here they are. And I have to start out by saying that I am the author. The illustrator is the genius ILA who brought my words to vibrant, loving, brilliant life. So yeah, on the face of it, KHALIL and Mr. Haggerty don't look like very likely friends. KHALIL is a newcomer to the United States along with his family. He is a young boy who shares an up and down house with old Mr. Haggerty, who's a kind of grumpy, laconic, and lonesome guy. They share a backyard, and there in their own backyard, they discover treasure and friendship. The book was inspired by a friend of mine who told me a wonderful story. She's a librarian. She's a lover of kids, a lover of gardens. She was outside digging in her backyard day after day in her garden. A little neighbor boy would come over with his shovel and dig alongside of her. And a few days went by and my friend said, Brian, what are you up to here? You just keep digging and digging with such determination. And Brian said, well, I'm trying to find treasure. I want to bring treasure home to my grandma. So, of course, that melted my friend's heart. She told me that story. I loved it. I carried it around for months, probably a year, before I figured out how I could write it. And when I did, I decided to base KHALIL on a real child who I'd come to get to know and to become friends with his family. He's the oldest child in a family of Iraqi refugees that we helped settle here in Cleveland, and who we had very little on the surface in common with at first, including language, but who we have shared so much with and forged a wonderful friendship with. And the older gentleman is based on my grandfather, James Joseph Haggerty, who was an Irish American, and who was a kind of a grumpy, somewhat scary guy to us children. He didn't talk very much, and to tell you the truth, I never got to know him very well, which is a regret. But in my book, KHALIL is he's a much braver, maybe bigger hearted child than I was. He reaches out to Mr. Haggerty, and they do forge a friendship and get to know one another over all the cultural and generational differences. So that's a long answer to your question.
Oh,
but,
no, it's wonderful.
I love this book and I love to talk about it.
So does the real KHALIL, does he love the book?
The book is dedicated to KHALIL and his 3 younger siblings, and yeah, I think they're pleased.
Well, that must just be such a huge thing for them. And you were scheduled to be on the panel on a speaker at ILA. So
yeah.
About what you were going to talk about.
Well, friendship was at the heart of the panel. It was actually called "Can Books Make Better Friends?" And I think as educators and as readers and as writers, we all know that, books can be friends. We all, growing up, had books that we felt like the characters in them were our best friends. But we wanted to also explore if books can help children actually make friends, and how reading and discussing and writing in response to books that that model different kinds of friendships, the ups and downs of friendships, the ins and outs of friendship. If responding to those kind of books could actually help create a more inclusive and friendlier classroom community. And on our panel were Laura Chauvin, Shelley Pearsall, and Susan Muwadi Daraj, and we covered everything from middle grade to chapter books to picture books, and talked about all the kinds of differences, neurodiversity, generational, cultural, race, gender, personality differences that can sometimes stand in the way of a child making a friend or being a friend, and how books could maybe help kids bridge those differences and come together, make connections, discover commonality, of course, while respecting differences, learn to see through other people's eyes. Yeah, we wanted to talk a lot about that and share our work. So.
Well, you're still going to get to share a little bit of it here. And one thing I just love about this book is the fact that language is so important for the two of them.
Yes.
It's a difficult thing, and it's also not easy for Mr. Haggerty as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That is one of the messages of the book, I think, is that words are very powerful things, and we can they can connect us, and they can also hurt and keep us apart. And so while KHALIL is new to this country and learning the language, old Mr. Haggerty, who I can relate to a little bit, is sometimes forgetting some of his words and needing help to be able to express himself and to make those connections. So yes, it's very much about the power of voice and language. Yes.
And I feel for those who have older people in their lives, the pandemic has really done a number on them. I mean, if they're having the socialization they're used to, and I find that the older people I know, it's really taken a toll. So it's a good reminder that we should be patient and kind to everybody, but maybe a little extra for people like Mr. Haggerty.
Right, and I think that's also that to remember that you're never too old or too young to make a new friend.
Yeah, that's the truth. Sure, that's wonderful. Well, there are some wonderful resources for this book as well that you can find on the Candlewick site, and of course, Candlewick always does a gorgeous job with all the books. So now, aren't you a former librarian, or I guess you're never a former librarian? Once a librarian, also always a librarian?
Yes, I have. I don't have a librarian degree. I feel like I always need to be upfront about that. But yes, I worked for years in the children's room of the Shaker Heights Public Library, and when the pandemic hit and the library closed, of course, I wasn't going there anymore, and I decided that it might be the best time for me to retire as a result. So I miss so much being around the kids, seeing what they picked up, talking to them, and what mattered to them, what books they loved, and also, of course, my fellow librarians who are my people. So that has been one of the losses for me over this past few months. Yeah.
And I feel like the Ohio librarians have a very special connection. If you're from Ohio, then they have to do the OH.
We do have incredible libraries here, and we support them. Yeah, and I'm very proud and grateful for that. Yes.
And there are so many different ways you can use this book in the classroom, so there are great resources for that. And you've written several other books as well, so this is not your first time around for sure.
It's only my second picture book. I wish I could write more picture books. I find them very challenging. Being able to get the arc of a book just right, being able to choose the right words, leave out the words that aren't needed, rely and collaborate with an illustrator. Those are challenging, but ultimately the most satisfying forms of writing, I think, really. And I have to say again that ILA I was very happy because I'm aware that, you know, I don't have an insider's knowledge of KHALIL's life. Elahe does. So I was able to feel very, very safe and secure and grateful that she was able to show she knows his life from the inside in a way that I couldn't, and that she could depict that. And so when I first, you know, when you're a writer, not an illustrator, the first time you see the art for the book, you kind of hold your breath. But when I saw these illustrations, my breath just came out in a huge, grateful whoosh of happiness. They're just beautiful. So yeah, and the whole is definitely greater than the sum of the parts with a picture book.
That's when you know it's working.
Yes.
That's the best part. Well, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your busy schedule.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure, and thank you for I'm so sad to miss ILA, in part because I was going to be right here in Ohio, but also because I've been to it in the past, and I'll say of all the conferences, it's my favorite. So I'm
reading
really,
teachers.
Yes, there's just so much heart and so much substance to everything that goes on at that conference. So I'm glad to have this chance to take part in it in a small way. So.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. And if you need information, please check it out on this page. And again, have a great day. Thank you so much, KHALIL, and Mr. Hagerty too.
Yes. Bye-bye.